Hi, this is Andrew Tweddle, owner of ABT Plumbing, Electric, Heat, and Air. Once again with the show You Got This. It's a show DIY do's and don'ts. And I am in my Auburn, we call this the interrogation room. It's kind of our conference room. I got our bear behind us, and she's in LA, and she's got some dude with a brain or something painting behind you. Yeah. Is there a story behind
Okay.
that?
Yeah, that's kind of a famous. Have you not ever seen that? You've never seen that graphic, that image before? That's kind of like there. It's the cerebral, the different parts that make up your personality. Do you see all that? Um, so I picked that up at a thrift store.
Nice.
So it's not as charming as the bear, but I do have. You can't see. I think he's off camera now, but
Okay.
I do have a pretty amazing T Rex that is always shining. Like Saint T
Yeah.
Rex is always
Should almost have,
overlooking,
yeah, just, I mean, we're in this whole new
flipped.
world, right? The Zoom world, and having your background's really important and stuff. It's like you can have your T Rex like
I
prominently
know.
displayed.
The reason
It's
that
pretty
the
cool.
reason that the reason the T-Rex is up and off to the side is because you know how tall I am because you know me in real life. Do you know how many
Yeah.
times like I've bent down to like feed the dog or something and I've come up and I've almost clocked myself on the T-Rex.
Right.
So I have to be very careful where I
But is
put the
this a
T-Rex.
styrofoam or is it
No,
hard plastic?
he's real. He's real. He's like
Oh,
he could do some damage. He could do
okay.
some
Well,
damage. Yeah.
that's no fun. Yeah. Speaking of damage to your brain, so we went on a trip. I already talked about the trip, but we got an Airstream trailer. We traded in our old Imagine trailer or Grand Design and got an Airstream. But we're finding about Airstreams is you hit your head a lot. Um, yeah, I had some scrapes up on the top of
You're
my
not that
skull.
tall.
I
You're
know.
not
I'm
that
like
tall.
5'8", and I'm still hitting my head. And then my wife, who's 5'2", she's hitting her head all the time. So, and apparently it's like a thing with Airstreams. People just hit their head. There's like whole, like we're on a couple of forums now, and like there's like whole threads about what to do about certain components, certain cabinets and things, because it's happens to everybody. The
Oh, it's so
door, hitting your
crazy.
head on the door. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, hitting your head is
I do have a fear of that because you know, we all have that one incident that we remember
hmm
forever.
yeah.
And I had a, you know, call it poor kitchen design, but you know, the cabinet came all the way out and then the dishwasher was near, bending down to get the something out of the dishwasher, come up and the cabinet is out and that edge of a cabinet on
Like the
this,
little corner. Yeah. Yep.
oh my God,
And then it leaves that
seeing
little scab
stars,
up there. That's
seeing
pretty bad,
stars.
but yeah, yeah.
Totally not understanding what's going on and then just going, who designed this freaking place? Like what? Yeah. No. It's hard to be a tall person, by the way.
Yeah. How tall
I
are
mean,
you?
you'll never know that.
You're taller than me, I think.
I
You're like
you
5'10".
think? I'm 5'11".
You're 5'11". All right. I can't remember. It's weird being short, and like I always think everybody's my height, which is really bizarre because I've got one friend who's like 6'3", and I'll walk up to him, and like, really close, and I'll hug him. I'm like, oh my god, my head barely comes up to his shoulders. It's just
Yeah.
foreign to me, right? And he's like patting me on the head, but at the same time, I think of him as my height all the time. And then I actually hang around with all my friends. Most of my guy friends are all taller than me, and I don't think of them as taller than me until I'm like standing right next to them.
Well, let's talk about how you hug. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute because I'm fortunate to be, I think, in the circle of friends. I don't get to see that often. When I see you, there's a
Yeah,
hug involved.
yeah,
You come in with a shoulder hug, and so
yeah.
I just want to give you a tip on how a safe hug, whether you're hugging a man or a woman. Okay, we call it ice cream scoop. Okay, and you just come in like an ice cream scoop, and you just do that, okay? And
All
then
right.
toot, toot, and let go. And then you will not have any awkwardness. You don't have a shoulder knocking me out in the throat
Yeah,
because you are shorter than me.
yeah.
I'm telling you, go in for a scoop. We call it a scoop
All
hug.
right, I will
Scoop
work
hug,
on that. Because
and just see.
particularly with females, where your friends, you don't want to be intimate, right? So
Right,
it's a
but
little awkward at times. Yeah, yeah,
it's a safe hug, I
yeah,
promise. And
yeah. All right.
if you get used to it. So yeah, I taught some friends in Tennessee about the scoop hug and they still make fun of me today, but guess what kind of hug they give people? They
Now they
give
give them the
people the
scoop
scoop
hug,
hug. Yeah.
the two arms,
You're welcome.
right? Yeah,
Yep.
because I
Just
usually lead
found it
with
like
one.
that. Yeah, and it's just you can't. I mean, you're a different height than me. That's like a,
Yeah.
and I don't want your shoulder like knocking out my neck, and just
You're
not.
hard
It's
to-
awkward. If you just do a scoop and then you do a scoop and then you just put your head to the side, whatever side you're going in with. You just move your head
All right.
and then it's
Duly
fine.
noted. Duly
Yeah,
noted.
try it.
All right.
Try it.
So
Don't
now
try it with
a little
employees.
life lesson here. Yeah. It is
Yeah,
a
don't try it
DIY.
with employees. Right.
No, I
do
don't
it with.
hug employees.
No, don't touch employees. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, we did. We had the sexual harassment training not long ago. So yeah, that and also I've learned the hard way about befriending them on social media as well.
Nope.
So I don't do that any longer either. Yeah.
And don't and never compliment anything but how their attitude, how you're receiving their attitude today, or the actual work they've done. Do not go, is that a new dress? Is that a new shirt? Is that a dip, 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 dip. Everyone looks the same to me. You're all in a beige filter. I don't see those things.
Yeah. But I will have to admit, some of the guys that I've been around and we're of the Gen X generation, we can be a little off color sometimes, but yeah. But that's just between us. I mean,
Right.
being that we've all been in the trades for a long time and growing up as a Gen
Oh,
Xer,
man.
you kind of, you're a little loose with
Oh, the stuff I
we were born and
heard.
raised listening to Richard Pryor and things like that, right? And
True.
Cheech and Chong's and Fast Time at Ridgemont High. I mean, I remember going to see that when I was in high school, right? So yeah, it's
You know what's funny? I just
Yeah.
rewatched that show. I just rewatched it the other day. I just rewatched it and I was like, oh my
uncut
God.
version? The
Yeah.
unedited
And
version?
yeah.
The frontal
And
nudity and stuff, like, oh my God, we were going to see that. I don't even know if I was in high school. I might have been in junior high at the time.
I think, yeah. And I remember, so I watched it recently and I remember, I was like, oh my God, this is where me and all my friends got the idea somehow that we were supposed to be super independent when we were teenagers. We were supposed to be allowed to do whatever you want because literally in all of those, the parent is a voice off screen. It's never an actual, and I was like, well, this is what messed us up. We thought we were going to have all that freedom because we watched it on a movie.
That was my life.
Oh.
I would leave the house. I would literally take Muni somewhere. I would be halfway across San Francisco by myself. My mom put me on Muni when I was 5. I don't know how that was a good idea, but anyway, I got used to being very independent at an early age, and we would take part out to Concord when we were in. I think I was like 11 or 12, just for fun, And yeah. So yeah,
I think,
and be back by dinner time. That was the whole thing. You just had to be back.
well, there was, I mean, so one, I think that, I'm so glad that you're still with us because I think your parents were kind of an anomaly, like on what not to do. Like,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
there was a lot of mental health issues going on there, and other
right.
things, so yeah,
A little extreme. Mine were kind of the other way where
basically raised by parents, so, yeah.
mine were a little bit the other way, but I just remember as a teenager thinking like these kids are not asking their parents for permission to do anything. And at my house, you didn't assume you were doing anything without getting clearance. So it was just a trip. I was like, oh, this is why I always thought life was going to be different. I always thought
I would literally
I was
like at 14, like I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh man, no, we didn't. Oh, we could go on and on about our childhoods and how weird they were, but that's not what people are here for.
No,
Now that I'm
we're actually here now. Yeah, we went on for a long enough. So yeah, we got some stuff about. We're gonna go on with this great list that you compiled. AI.
yes, nope, never give anyone credit but me.
All right, you compiled. Well, you did definitely edited it. So myths and truths about plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. So we did some things. We're talking about some myths about plumbing, like putting raw hamburger down into your.
That was so gross.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I heard that. I mean, at least a dozen that I remember, and I can't tell you how many other times I'm sure they talked to me about it. But anyway, so and also about toilets, that low flow toilets don't work.
Oh yeah, no, I know a lot of people that still believe that, Andrew. It doesn't matter what the data shows. I think it's psychological. If they can't hear it and kind of see that big scary thing, there's an assumption that it's not, as effective. But yeah, we did talk about that last week.
Spend a little bit more money and get a product that's actually been well engineered. But anyway, so now we're going to talk about electrical. So there's some really good stuff about here on electrical. So I'm going to start with this one. You don't need to worry about flickering lights. It's normal. Nope. So, flickering fluorescent lights, you see that a lot of times, like in your office or a grocery store or something like that. a lot of times that's kind of a not necessarily a fire hazard, but there's definitely something wrong, right? The ballast is going or the tube's going out. But if you do still have fluorescent lights, you may want to think about changing them to LEDs because they have retro kits. Like in the space that I'm in right now, we've got old tube fluorescents that we've converted to LEDs, which is even more efficient than fluorescent. But when we're really talking about a standard kind of incandescent light bulb or something like that, that's in your kitchen or in your bathroom or something that starts to flicker, that's a sign of something that's really not going right. That could be going really bad back there. So flickering lights can indicate an underlying electrical issue that should not be ignored. It could be a sign of a loose connection. Now I'm going to talk about that one because that's one of the key things. And lights tend to be installed a lot of times by homeowners or handymen because it's a relatively simple thing and you don't necessarily call an electrician to install a light, and they'll just put the wires together and wire nut them together, right? And they'll use the little orange wire nuts that come in the box with the light. Those things are garbage, and if the wires aren't mechanically twisted together so you actually have a really good contact, there's a really good chance that you're having a loose connection. And what happens with a loose connection is, electricity doesn't go through that connection. But what's even scary about a loose connection is those electrons really want to they're trying their hardest to make it to ground. So they will literally jump through midair like lightning to ground. So that's all that lightning is. It's electricity jumping from a cloud to the ground, and electrical systems will do the same thing. So that gap between there can cause a fire, right? It's what we use inside of internal combustion engine. We have a gap and we do high voltage and have it jump that gap, and it ignites the fuel inside the combustion engine. The same thing happens in our electrical system. If you have a loose connection, it could literally mean that electrons are jumping the gap and forming a little lightning bolt and could burn your house down. And that's like the number one cause of fires in people's homes is electrical issues. So if you have a flickering light, you want to address that really rapidly. At least stop using it and then get somebody out there to fix it. So it could also be a loose connection or an overloaded circuit. I'll be honest, you don't have a lot of overload circuits on a lighting circuit unless the electrician that installed it also had a lot of outlets on that circuit, which should be separate, but that could be overloaded. There could also be a problem in the panel. We see this with Zinsco panels. Again, you get the loose connection and the electrons will be jumping, and we've seen houses that have literally burnt down because of the Zinsco panels. There's been recalls on those. They're old. They're like 30 to 40 to 50 years old. All the lawsuits have been paid out already, but we still see them pretty much on a daily basis in our community because most of our development was done in the 60s and 70s, so they were used a lot in that time frame. And they are very, very dangerous. And that you get those loose connections on the circuit breaker to the bus bar. The other thing it could be is you really just want to have an electrician take a look at it. And if you're not an electrician, you really should hire an electrician to look at it because it's not really a DIY thing. Yeah, you were going to say something.
So I just want to, for me, I just kind of want to soak this in. So first off, I get excited when you talk about stuff that you have a really good understanding of because you're a really good teacher. I'm like, oh, I just learned that. So I like that. But the visual of when you say a little lightning bolt jumping around, I mean, honestly, maybe most people, it had occurred to them, but until you said that, and then me envisioning that, literally in my own house, that is scary. That is so scary.
I mean, it's scary, and we really try to train our guys to use language like that because it is hard to, arcing, it's arcing, right? And people think, well, it's just arcing. What's the big problem with that?
Well, I personally,
people can kind of understand. And it's
trying
to get to ground, and it's lightning.
Okay, to be fair, to be fair, electricity scares me more than sharks or being hit by a car or anything. So let me explain. This is how bad it is. So when I'm going to move my laptop around, because sometimes I want to work over there, I want to work in that room. Okay. So, my youngest daughter still lives with me. And so I literally will say, hey, you need to come here and move that for me. Because every time she goes to plug into my source cord or whatever the thingy.
Power strip. Yeah.
Yes. little sparks come out, and I'm like, oh, you're just like your dad. You're not afraid of electricity, but I am. So she literally, one of her jobs is to move my electrical appliances in the right place, because the second I think there's going to be, but there's always a little spark when it goes in, and she's got no fear. I'm
Yeah.
freaking out. I'm terrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And those sparks again, that's arcing. It's little lightning bolts. Um, so this kind of segues into the next thing that on the list is a myth is it's safe to perform DIY electrical repairs and installations. Yeah, it's one of those things where working with electricity can be extremely dangerous, and electrical repairs and installations should be left to trained and licensed electricians. This is why we don't talk a lot about electrical repair DIY stuff on the show, because of the fact that it is one of those things that, again, the number one cause of houses burning down is electrical and poor electrical installations. You could put a wire that is too small and overload the wire, and then all of a sudden you have a heating element, right? A toaster element is literally just a resistance coil. It is a wire that is too small, and we're forcing electrons through it and gets resistance, and it turns red hot. You can wire your house with resistant coils. You can put a wire that is too small for the load, and it will get so hot that it'll catch the wood. It'll literally light the wood on fire. Hopefully, the circuit breaker will trip, but the circuit breaker may be oversized as well. So you're putting too much of a load on it. So the breaker's not going to trip. So there's so many things that can go wrong with doing your own electrical work. Even like I was just talking about, putting in a light. It seems like it's a really simple job, and it is to a point. But you might be using a product that is inferior, like the little orange wire nuts that come with the wire nuts. For those that may not know, it's they call them wire nuts, but really all it is you don't want to think of it as a mechanical means of connecting wires. All it really is to protect, to insulate those conductors from the outside world so it doesn't ground. You really need to twist those wires and make sure you have a mechanical connection.
Okay.
It's hard sometimes when you got a solid wire and you've got a stranded wire, which a solid wire will be one wire and one core of copper, and a stranded will be multiple little wires. They don't necessarily hold on to each other really well, and you use those orange ones and they fall off. And anyway, you really should have an electrician do those installations, and I'll say you should also have an electrician come out and take a look and make sure it's done safely to begin with, and especially if you've done some work yourself. And if the house is over 25 years old, you should really have us come out, or somebody else come out and inspect your electrical system. Okay, speaking of DIY stuff, we'll talk about this. Turning off the circuit breaker is enough to work safely on electrical components. You would think so, but
Well, I wouldn't think so. I would assume that it's still live.
and some systems you could still have residual electricity. I mean, I've seen systems where it's still hot even after you've turned the electrical system off. Anytime you're working with electrical, you want to make sure, again, this is for entertainment value, and you should never work on your own electrical work. But if somebody were to work on electrical, and this is something we train our guys, is you want to have the proper personal protective equipment. So you want to have gloves, you want to have safety glasses. Why do you want to have safety glasses when you're working with electrical? I don't care how good an electrician you are. Sometimes you're going to get arcs, and when you arc two wires, things fly off, and it's literally molten metal, molten copper can fly into your eye and do a lot of damage really quick. Just speaking from experience,
Scary.
I've had the
Yeah.
molten copper hit me in the hand, and it hurts. So anyway, don't work on your own electrical. Hire somebody that knows what they're doing. GFCI outlets and circuit breakers provide the same level of protection. No, they are two totally different components. What is a GFCI? A GFCI is a ground fault circuit interrupter. So it's an outlet that, or circuit breaker that serves in a circuit breaker. I was trying to read it while still, and I haven't read this one through. But anyway, a GFCI, it basically makes sure that you don't turn into the ground. It wants to make sure if you touch something, or a component or electrical component, it senses the differential in the electrons, that it shuts it off. So it makes sure that you don't become part of the circuit and get electrocuted. A circuit breaker It's completely different. Circuit breakers, on the other hand, protect against electrical overloads. So if there's too many amps going through the wire or through the circuit, it's going to shut down. So completely different component. But they do make GFCI breakers, so that's why they have to be kind of critical. But anyway, they're completely different. So that's a myth. This is a good one. Light switches and outlets don't need to be replaced unless they stop working. Light switches and outlets can wear out over time. They're something that we use all the time. They typically have a lifespan of about 10 years. I know it's weird, but anything on the outside of the wall that we can see typically has a lifespan of about 10 years, whether that's plumbing, electrical, or HVAC. They need to be replaced. Why? Old and damaged switches can cause potential safety hazards such as risk of electrical shock or overheating. I've also run into many homes where you flip the switch and you hear a little sizzle back there. Little lightning bolts jumping, right?
No, if I hear sizzle, I'm out. I'm like grabbing the dog and I'm out. No.
And outlets, again, they wear out. There's literally just two pieces of metal that that make connection with the plug that we put in with the male part, and those little springy guys, they wear out after a certain period of time. And if you're plugging and unplugging appliances often, those things will wear out. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen little black soot above outlets. Dude, that's like, there's something seriously going wrong in there to cause that. You need to address that right away. That needs to be replaced. And unfortunately, we'll go into a little detail here because we got a little bit more time. So not only should they be replaced, but they should be inspected. Because unfortunately, in our world as electricians, there's been a push to save time for installation, right? Because time is money. So many decades ago, they came up with this really great idea of the push outlets and switches, which all you got to do is strip the wire and literally push it into the back, into this little hole, and there's a little spring in there and a little piece of metal that makes contact. They seem like a really great idea, and they're still utilized today. There's no code against them. But what we've seen in reality is, and you can check this on the internet, that little contact is really tiny. And you can have an overload of the circuit. You can have that spring can become weak and start to move away from the wire, and you have, again, little lightning bolts jumping across because electrons want to go to ground. We basically just recommend replacing them anytime we see them. And it's up to the customer the client whether they want to do that or not. But we've seen many fires because of it. And again, not just saying this because I want your work, but check it on the internet. It's documented. Those things are bad. And one of the key symptoms that we see is that little black smoke above your outlet, or that little black smoke above your switch. And we see that often. So. Yeah, those are something that we've been doing for a long time, and I won't do it again. That's our show. We got it. We did it. So if you do need any help with your plumbing, electrical, heating, or air, I didn't put my box on here. What's our phone number again? 230-9092. 530-230-9092. 530-230-9092. Hey, I remembered it. My brain's not completely gone.
It's only been 5 years. That's fine.
Right. And you can reach us. You can find us on the web at Easy's ABT or ABT Plumbing, and like us on Facebook. We share all this stuff. We share the shows. We get recordings of these. And if you're looking for work, give us a call. Anyway, ABT Plumbing, we're out. Thanks for listening to You Got This, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.